A nation of 20 million watched the gates quietly seal shut, and in that silence, dignity spoke louder than diplomacy. Hours earlier, the United States had asked Burkina Faso to accept migrants being expelled under Washington's renewed immigration crackdown. The request sounded procedural on paper, but in Ouagadougou, it was heard as an insult. Burkina Faso answered with a word small countries rarely dare to use: no. Foreign Minister Karamoko Jeanarie Traoré said it calmly, without theatrics. Burkina Faso is not a dumping ground for deportations. Within hours, Washington froze visas. The message was unmistakable: refusing a superpower comes with a cost. But beneath the politics, something deeper stirred. This was not a story about visas. It was a struggle over who gets to decide whose soil carries whose shame. And in the Sahel, Captain Ibrahim Traoré had become the face of a continent learning to measure power by principle, not permission. At dawn on the 10th of October 2025, the usual long line formed. Outside the U.S. Embassy, students with folders, traders with passports, mothers whispering prayers into the warm Sahel morning. By midday, the notice board changed. A single paragraph, no explanation. By afternoon, the news traveled through tea stalls and market corners. They shut it because we refused the deportations. Earlier that day, the foreign minister had spoken to the nation. His words were steady, but carried the weight of generations. Our hospitality is not a place for others to offload their failures. The U.S. called its plan humanitarian cooperation. Burkina Faso saw humiliation wrapped in bureaucratic language. By evening, the embassy was dark. Technical adjustments, Washington said, but people who have lived through decades of global politics know what that phrase really means. When a superpower is offended, it doesn't argue. It withdraws. Under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who took power in 2022, the country had already moved away from Western influence. Gold mines nationalized, French troops expelled, new alliances formed with Mali and Niger. Every decision had carved distance from old partners. The visa freeze became the most symbolic break of all. Across social media, Western voices called the move self-isolation. In Ouagadougou's streets, people called it liberation. A university student summed it up: if their gates close so easily, maybe they were never meant for us. Because for decades, a Western visa was treated as a badge of validation, proof that one's dreams needed external approval. And when those doors shut, it forced a painful but powerful question: can a nation truly be sovereign if opportunity depends on another's consent? This was not the first rebellion in the Sahel. Mali expelled the French ambassador in 2023. Niger ended its military pact with Washington in 2024. Now, in 2025, Burkina Faso added its chapter: resistance through refusal. Reuters confirmed the visa suspension. BBC carried the foreign minister's statement. The U.S. offered no direct answer, but journalism cannot capture emotion. In Bobo Dialaso's markets and in the cafes of Ouagadougou, people debated the meaning of that single word, no. Some feared consequences: lost scholarships, broken families, interrupted trade. Others carried pride like a shield. A teacher put it simply: we have stood at other people's gates too long. Then came the speech. That night, a soldier in fatigue stepped before the national camera, the flag of red, green, and gold behind him, his beret tilted, his voice controlled steel. Ibrahim Traoré did not mention the U.S. directly. He didn't need to. They say our refusal offends them, he said. But dignity is not an insult, it is our birthright. His words spread across the Sahel like a spark through dry grass. What Western analysts dismissed as populism felt, to locals, like scripture. A shopkeeper told a reporter, he speaks for Africans, not just for Burkina Faso. Washington stayed silent, the kind of silence that hides strategy. But Traoré had achieved something rare. He turned bureaucratic retaliation into a moral victory. He invoked Sankara and Lumumba, names that still shake African memory. They called them rebels. He said, "We call them prophets." 3 sentences from his speech became a continental mantra. We will not surrender. We will not bow. We will not trade freedom for favor. Students memoized the lines, markets repeated them, diaspora communities translated them into French, Arabic, and Swahili. But as always, inspiration carries consequences. Human rights groups warned that nationalism could cover growing repression. Journalists whispered about intimidation. Critics vanished quietly from broadcasts. Burkina Faso's pride was rising, but so was its control. International analysts called this the beginning of narrative sovereignty, the power to win through story, not strength. In Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Guinea, Traoré's words echoed like an anthem. Murals appeared, "Our soil, our soul." Western media scrambled to interpret the shift, but the silence between Washington and Ouagadougou spoke for itself. Inside Burkina Faso, the moment felt historic. Teachers held lessons on sovereignty, students wrote poems titled, "Letters of Refusal." Civil servants quoted the president's phrase, "Respect is not begged for." A taxi driver summed up the national mood, "It feels good to stand tall. I just hope we can still feed our children." The weeks that followed revealed the price of dignity. Flights to Togo filled with visa applicants, exporters delayed business trips, scholarships were suspended. For the middle class, it felt like their horizon had shrunk, but in rural villages, pride outweighed inconvenience. Farmers said, "Our soil is enough for us." Traders declared, "Keep your visas. We keep our dignity." Sovereignty became a form of faith, a sacrifice people were willing to bear, yet the government tightened its grip. Press freedom shrank, critics were quietly pushed aside. Traoré's portrait hung next to Sankara's everywhere. He was no longer just a captain, he was becoming a creed. Internationally, Burkina Faso became a case study. Dignity diplomacy, analysts called it, the ability to turn humiliation into political strength. Western diplomats admitted the visa freeze backfired. Instead of pressuring Burkina Faso, it boosted Traoré's popularity. The Sahel alliance, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, grew stronger. Their slogan echoed across the region, unity, sovereignty, security. On the global stage, the power balance subtly shifted. The West reduced its presence, France withdrew staff, Russia and China stepped in with no moral lectures, just business. African nations watched closely, some wondered whether they should question visa regimes too. The conversation had changed, from compliance to equality. By late 2025, Burkina Faso waived visa fees for all African citizens. A symbolic gesture, but a powerful one. A teacher summed it up on a talk show, "We have traded mobility for meaning. Sovereignty, like gold, must be refined through fire." And in 2026, Burkina Faso stands at a crossroads, between protest and policy, between pride and practicality, between standing tall and standing alone. The world now watches to see what comes next.